And finally, for today's episode, let's turn to David Trim and Dragoslava Santrac for a very recent look at this week in Adventist history.
This week, the new Encyclopedia of Seventh-day Adventists was launched online.
David and Dragoslava have more.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History, which is about this week, because it has been a significant event in Adventist history. This week, July 1st, saw the launch of the website of the Encyclopedia of Seventh-day Adventists, a project that has been more than 5 years in the making. You can find it on the internet at encyclopedia.adventist.org. That's encyclopedia.adventist.org, and you should see it on the screen. This has been a major reference work. It's the church's first online reference work. And so even though I am the editor and my colleague Dragoslava Santrac is the managing editor, and therefore we are biased, but despite that, we believe that in the future, this week will be seen as very significant, indeed historic, significant for the writing of Adventist history, but also significant for the understanding of the history of this church. Dragoslava, you became the managing editor in 2018, and before that, you were not an Adventist historian, you were an Old Testament scholar. Indeed, you still are an Old Testament scholar. I'm sure you see yourself in that way.
Yes.
How has this project and managing this project helped develop your understanding of Seventh-day Adventist history?
History is fundamental to biblical studies. In the Bible, God reveals himself in the history of his people Israel. Biblical prophecies and theology are embedded in history. So for me as an Adventist believer and biblical scholar, Adventist history is part of the grand unfolding of God's purposes and providential leading and care for humanity.
Amen.
Working on the Encyclopedia project has made me see this even more clearly.
So would you say that working on the Encyclopedia has actually been a blessing?
It's been a tremendous blessing. It's been an eye-opening experience. It made me appreciate my church, our church, even more, appreciate all the people who made our church what it is now, and it inspired me to continue the mission with greater passion and commitment. It's been a tremendous blessing to me and to my family who's been with me on this project, following all the updates and little nuggets that I would share, and sometimes even seeing me in tears as I read and edit certain articles and see really moving historical images, photographs.
What's just one story from the encyclopedia? And, you know, for those watching, we have more than 2,100 articles and many more to come. But 2,100 articles are on the website when it launched. They're there now. Tell me just one story from the encyclopedia that meant a lot to you.
Yes, the encyclopedia is full of stories of sacrifice and courage. And one of them is the little-known story about Amalia Galadzeva-Lebzak, an Adventist worker in the Soviet Union during the times of Stalin's persecutions in the 1930s and 1940s. Amalia's father, who was the leading Adventist minister in the former Soviet regions, died of consequences of cruel interrogations. Amalia's husband and many other pastors were arrested during those times as well. In the face of such adversity, Amalia never considered abandoning ministry. She was arrested in 1941, and only many years later did her family learn that she was executed by shooting near the city of Tbilisi on February 4, 1942. Amalia Galadzeva-Lebzak represents many women from the Soviet Union who served the church in trying times and whose names are not familiar to many of us today. She is an example of God's faithful children who chose service over safety. And that story really inspired me and stood up for me, and many others like this.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for all your work as managing editor. It's a great relief, as well as a sort of moment of of joy to see it go live and to have got to this point. We do still need authors. The website has premiered, but the encyclopedia is not finished. We still need authors. You can volunteer to write on a subject or submit corrections to an article as you find them via the website or at this email address, encyclopedia@gc.adventist.org. That's encyclopedia@gc.adventist.org. And then you too can be part of this historic reference work. Thank you, Dragoslava, for sharing what your experience with the encyclopedia. We hope that all of you watching will also find it an historic moment to go there to explore those thousands of articles and even more than 3,000 currently, images and historic photographs. But as for now, that's this week in Adventist history.